as Bishop says, I won't be before you long, and I truly won't be before you long. There's a few of us here, and I just wanted to take this session to kind of wrap up. We have been meeting for the past 7 or 8 weeks, and I want to summarize some of the information we've shared and end our session with a question for things to come. So in the beginning, we started out talking about stigma and understanding what that is. What do I give my definition? And if we think about what's now, this might be a question answer, and you guys might have to do some unmuting, but and this is the test to see who's been with us for a while. When you think of stigma, what's the definition of that? Anybody remember? Anybody remember? No worries. So what I want to read for you is exactly what stigma is. Stigma is when someone's view of, here it is. Stigma is when someone views you in a negative way because you have a distinguishing characteristic, a personality trait, or they think of you in a different way, that your thoughts are different, you act different, and you're viewed as a disadvantage or a negative way. Unfortunately, I have to tell you that the negative attitudes and beliefs toward people who have any mental health concerns and those who have addiction problems, the stigma still exists today in 2021. And some of the conversations that we've had in the past in our previous sessions, we've talked about some of the treatment and some of the uses that we the use of mood altering substance that we do or have or we do, or what's the word I'm looking for? The usage that's out in our community. We started out talking about in week 1 what medical assisted treatment is, and that is any treatment that is used to help addictions using medicine. So there are several medications out there that are used to help in the area of addictions. We discussed that in our week 1. We discussed alcoholism and abuse in the African American community. We had a discussion about families and how alcoholism affects the family. I'm going to circle back to that as I continue on. We talked about in our previous sessions how African American people are less likely to seek counseling, although we are just on the national average of having mental health disorders and or experiencing addictions as the general public, but we are less likely to seek counseling as a result of the stigma that's related to those who use and abuse. Some things that we talked about in terms of how we look at individuals, we look at them as being weak. We look at them as having a problem. Oftentimes we tell one another, just suck it up and keep moving. And when you can't do that, you're often looked at as not being able to get through. And the effect of the person who's dealing with the stigma, they often feel shame, hopeless, and isolated. They often are reluctant to get help, which is what contributes to our not getting any mental health counseling. Oftentimes, they have fewer opportunities for employment or social interactions because of the stigma related to any mental health issues and or addictions. People who use drugs will tend to, unfortunately, but fortunately, they will try to hide their usage by getting things off market or on market to, you can even buy clean urine so that you can pass a urine test. So that exists out there in the community. We talked about in the past some information about marijuana use in the African American community, opiate abuse, and culminating with stigma. And our most recent discussion was about the dysfunction of family. I would like to provide to you this evening, again, this is summarizing everything we've talked about this past 8 weeks. I want to talk about the language that's sometimes used as it relates to people dealing with mental health and or drug abuse problems. Some disrespectful forms, I'm going to call it disrespectful language, that exists out there is people are often referred to as crazy, lunatic, defiant, Looney Tune, psycho. One of the current buzzwords is bipolar. Oh, they're just bipolar. People even refer to the weather. This is generational. Oh, the weather's being bipolar today. So there's a lot of language out there that is more stigma driven than it is helping those to break the stigma. Another form of disrespectful language, I'll use that term, is the use of schizophrenic. Oh, they're schizophrenic versus they're a person that deals with schizophrenia. So one of the things as we go beyond this moment, we want to be aware of the language that we use as it relates to drug and alcohol abuse. So we want to refer to people who have mental illness or psychiatric disabilities. We want to refer to persons with bipolar disorder as manic depressive illness versus manic depressive. We want to, and I mentioned this before, we want to refer to someone not as schizophrenic, but a person who has schizophrenia, a person with a disability, a person who has cognitive difficulties, or someone's able versus non-abled or non-disabled person. So those are just some language matters I wanted to put out there for you to put in your toolbox as you go beyond this moment and go into the community. I also want to share with you some statistics. The rate of opioid overdose among African Americans is about 6.6% per capita. That's about less than half of that of a non-Hispanic or white community. Their opioid overdose statistics are 13.9%. Those who use illicit drugs among the African American community is slightly higher than the national average. They were about 12.4% versus 10.2% of national average. So the African American community has a higher illegal drug use than the community at large. Compared to the whites in the African American communities, we're less likely to receive guided, consistent care. We're less likely to be included in research. So a lot of information that's out there as it relates to even the medical assistant treatment has often been wrapped around those who are Caucasian or in the white community. So some things that may be effective with one group may not be effective with ours. And that does not pertain to what the current climate we're in with COVID and what they're doing with the vaccine that has been proven to be effective. So that is a separate conversation outside of what we're talking about today. What I present to you is information as it relates to mental health, drugs, and drug use and misuse in the African American community. For the African American community, we are more likely to use the emergency room as our care or as our way to access care versus having a primary care physician. and that is often due to insurance rates, insurance reimbursement, and access to affordable health care. This is where I want to jump to. Last week, we talked about some of the dysfunction of families, and we gave some definitions and signs of dysfunction in the family. And I just kind of want to review that and leave everyone with that information, because it could definitely be used within your own family of origin starting today. So when we think about what is dysfunction, a dysfunctional family is a family that experienced some level of chaos, trauma. There is a lot of miscommunication, arguments, lack of healthy attachments. Within the addictive family dysfunctional system, you will see a lot of perfectionism. There is always, or quite often, unrealistic expectations within the addicted dysfunctional family. There's abuse and there's neglect. There's unpredictable fear, and unpredictable fear reference to you never know who you're going to get when it comes to the person who's abusing, be it alcohol or any other drugs. You don't know who and how they're going to be when they come home. So often there's an unstable environment as it relates to an alcohol or drug abuse dysfunctional family. There's a lack of intimacy within the family that is dysfunctional. There is poor communication, as I mentioned before. And there's conditional love, not unconditional. There's conditional love within the dysfunctional family members, that they may be incredibly manipulative. They use affection as a way to get love, or they take away their affection as a way to hurt others. So it's very conditional. I love you if you accept what I do. I love you if you give me money to go get my drugs. So it's very conditional. There are lack of boundaries within the dysfunctional families. Either you'll have a controlling parent, an intimidating parent, or an older child that's taking on the role as a parent. So there's a lot of lack of boundaries within the dysfunctional family. What I spoke about last week, we talked about the types of roles that family members play in the dysfunctional family. And those roles are the scapegoat, the caretaker, the hero, the mascot, the addict, and the lost child. Again, I'm just going through this as a review because it's our last and final session in this series. And I want to make sure that we're really clear on not only the stigma and what that looks like, but how that's perpetuated in the stereotypes or the roles that we play within our family. Giving a brief background on the scapegoat, who and how does that look within the family? What is the scapegoat? The scapegoat family member is the one that's cast aside, they're kind of blamed for problems that may not even be their fault. So that might look like little Johnny spilled milk and everybody's screaming at Johnny for spilling the milk, but really the intense response is a direct connection to the person who's an addict, who just came in drunk again and passed out on the floor. But Johnny gets the energy of that frustration. So that's the scapegoat. Children who are scapegoated are often very aware of that's their role in the family. They know that everybody's coming down on them as a result of that person's problem. And many times they feel rejected, unloved, and isolated. Yeah, I'll leave that there. The scapegoat child often may be one who is frequently sick. They seem a little weaker, or they have a lot of chronic conditions. The scapegoat child or the scapegoat individual may get into trouble quite often. For school age child, they have problems in school, both academically and socially. The scapegoat person may also experience more or harsher abuse compared to other family members. So because they are the scapegoat, they may be the one that get the harshest punishment, if you will. That's the function of the scapegoat child or person. The caretaker. The caretaker is just like that, as the word says. The caretaker of the family system is the one that makes sure everything's okay. They're the one that's enabling. They're the martyr. They're the one that attempts to keep everyone in the family happy. What can I get you? I'll make excuses for the addict. I'll make excuses for the person sick. I'll make excuses for this person not being here. The caretaker is always wanting everyone to be happy. The ultimate sacrifice is that they themselves deny the experience of dealing with any major central issue, meaning they are the avoiders. They will not deal with the problem. You may see this in your work environment. Sometimes this person might be, whenever there's a serious conversation and they want to immediately jump to, well, why do we have to talk about this? And they try to avoid heavy conversations. They could be, I say they are, they could be the caretaker of their family. They could be the person that kind of enables and doesn't want anything to be disruptive. So they'll make sure that's okay. And no, that's okay. So that's the caretaker. The hero. The hero is the one who is highly functional. They're well balanced in the family. They can, they make sure they get the straight A's if they're students. They're very high achievers. And sometimes even on the other end, they can be low achievers, but high functioning. So they don't have a lot of achievement-based societal things, but they're very highly functional. As a child, they may be parentified, meaning they take over the role of the parent. So they're the ones making sure that the kids are taken care of. There are sometimes in some dysfunctional families, you will find that the child will take even on the role of the spouse. For example, if it's a male child, they may be the one that's really attentive to the mom in ways more so that the husband should be taken care of. Let me make sure mom goes to work. Let me make sure mom has money. Let me make sure mom has this. So they kind of take on a spousal role. And for the daughter is very doting over the father, making sure he's taken care of. Let me get your food. Let me do this for your dad. So they just take over roles of the spouse. That happens in a dysfunctional family. The mascot. The mascot is the person who uses humor. They're the ones they're the goofy ones, as they say in the family. Oh, they always cracking jokes. They always are the one that tries to distract from things that are serious. These individuals within the family, they often, if there's anything volatile, though they may laugh what seems like at inappropriate times, but that's their way of coping with uncomfortable situations. They act from a place of anxiety or trauma. So their responses they're incongruent to the situation. And they also experience bouts of depression. The addict is the person who's using whatever mood altered substance there is. If they're alcoholic, they're drug addict, they're heroin addict, they're a marijuana abuser, whatever drug they're using, they're the addict. And the addict, as you know, they often feel like resentment, because they're either being stigmatized by the family, ostracized by the family, or feeling themselves as a result of wanting to do something different, rejected, isolated, and often feeling misunderstood. They feel angry quite often and deal with bouts of depression. And lastly, the lost child. The lost child attempts to blend into the background as much as possible. They keep to themselves. They're usually really quiet. They don't want to rock the boat. They often feel ignored and they feel neglected, and they are very scared to draw attention to themselves. So you may see that, I'm trying to think as a perspective as an adult. Sometimes if you're in a business meeting and you notice there's one person who's always quiet, we can't blanket label them this way as being the lost child, but that's how it shows up sometimes in an adult, that they are more the ones that sit quietly back and don't draw a lot of attention. They often, you say, well, was such and such there? And you go, yeah, I think they were. Like they kind of blend into the background. So that's the lost child. So what I want to leave you all with is some common characteristics of the dysfunctional family. And if you want to write these down, just put them in your toolbox. And as you look around your community, as you look around your own family, look for some of these warning signs. Some common characteristics, again, of a dysfunctional family are poor or ineffective communication. You can look for that in your business meetings. Do we have that going on? Because that's even a family unit, if you will. Another characteristic of a dysfunctional family are the family member comparisons. So there's a lot of comparing. Why aren't you like this person? This person does this, and I don't see you doing that. So comparison. There's often power struggles within the dysfunctional family. One family member tries to control another. There's excessive criticism, where there is often falls under the umbrella of verbal abuse. And sometimes criticism can be subtle. Doesn't have to always be in your face. It could be, oh, is that what you're gonna do? Those little, they call it shade, those little shade statements. There's unpredictable interactions. Is another common characteristic of a dysfunctional family. Not knowing whether you'll have breakfast today or wondering whether dad will come home or starting a fight with everyone can cause a lot of emotional trauma for kids when they are young and as they grow. Children who grow up in unpredictable environments may eventually perpetuate this pattern in adulthood by unconsciously being drawn to partners and friends who help perpetuate their childhood experience, which is chaos. So unpredictable interactions. Conditions of care is another characteristic of dysfunctional families. For example, a mother may only show love towards her kids when they do things well, if they get a straight A. Another example, people may only get acknowledgement when they do a good job at work. That's another adult environment. There's little to no intimacy in a dysfunctional family. There's, of course, drug and alcohol abuse. There's a lack of empathy. And there is an excessive expectation. There are excessive expectations within the dysfunctional family. So as we close out our 7-week or 8 weeks of discussion in this town hall, I want to pause for a moment and just ask if there are any questions. Any parting thoughts? Well, I appreciate you.
Because I haven't been here, I have many questions. One of my biggest questions is there such thing as a child being everything at one time? The scapegoat, the caretaker, the hero, the mascot,
Yes,
and the lost child.
absolutely.
Can a child become all of these characteristics at one time, which eventually will lead them to addiction?
Absolutely. And the way that will look, and particularly in single, where there's only one child, they will experience all of those levels, but there is one dominant way that they functioned in that family. That kind of takes some time to explore when you're in counseling. But yes, it is possible for someone to experience all those things at one time, or at least at some time within their family unit, and then they grow up and they use to escape those experiences. So yes, that's a good question. Yeah. Any other questions or thoughts?
Okay, it's me again.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I've missed all the classes. Now I'm like, oh no. In a dysfunctional family, having all of these characteristics as well, can a dysfunctional family have these characteristics without addictive behavior? Without someone being addicted in the household is a better way of expressing it.
Yes. If we take away the use of addictions, someone else might be a workaholic, meaning someone who works. Well, you all know what that means. You know, we might have one family member who just always works. Like I have someone that, you know what, they can't even recall memories of their father because their father was always working. And then when we broke down, okay, where do we see the family members fitting in this? They were able to identify who was the mascot, who was the lost child, who was the caretaker. So to answer your question, yes, these same character traits can exist in a non-addicted family. These are dysfunctional families, period. They're just more prevalent in an addictive household. But these are traits that you will find in any dysfunctional family. So I hope they answered that question.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any other question? Now, Sister Sonia, I do want to tell you, if you would like to go back, I know that we have these recorded and they are on, I believe, our website, the Word of Deliverance website, so you can go back. Please feel free, rewatch, share this information, and prayerfully we'll be back sooner than later with our next 7-week sessions, and we'll have some provocative subjects all related to mental health, stigma, family functions. We're going to really dig a lot deeper into the family and how it relates to perpetuating stigma within the family and the community at large. So I hope that you'll join us then.
Yes, and so when I go into the website, what would I look up under? What is the heading that I could look up under?
I want to check with
I'm
the
not
host.
sure if you got that because my internet is unstable right now, so I'm going in and out. So were
Right.
you able to hear what the question that I asked?
Yes, ma'am. What I heard you ask was, how would you access that when you go into the Word of Deliverance website?
Yes.
Correct. Yes. I want to check with our host. I believe it may be on actually our Facebook page, but Minister Kim, are you still here with us? She may have stepped away. That's a good question that I want to answer while we are here.
I am here.
Okay.
I'm in the midst of editing the previous sessions, and they will be on S.O.A.R's YouTube page. Once we get everything up and running, we can send out an email with the link to the YouTube page.
Okay, sounds wonderful, because that was going to be my next question, is how do I access the S.O.A.R YouTube page?
Yeah,
Okay,
there were, a few things that we wanted to kind of take out of some of them that, that got recorded that didn't need to get recorded. So we just want to make sure everything's of excellence when we put it out.
Amen.
sounds great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Sister Sonia, I thank you for your questions, and I thank you for just interacting. I appreciate you for coming, and again, we're here. I don't look at the numbers per se, but I look at the quality of the conversation. So I pray that what information I had to share with you today was helpful. And
I just hate that I missed it. I wasn't I'm not going to say that I didn't get the information because I'm at home with children all day, every day. My email is something that I don't look at, but periodically. And so I'm sure that the information was there and I just missed it, because I love to come to these town hall meetings because I get so much information. I have a brother who is battling and has been battling with alcoholism since my mother passed away, which will be 18 years ago, come next month. And I just wish I had been here. And so I will definitely be accessing that information, because he is staying clean for 4 to 5 months, and then he's right back at it. And this last time, in the last 2 or 3 weeks, me and my dad just thought that, okay, Lord, you have come and you have done it again. He's got it together. And he came back to Cincinnati because he's been living in Middletown. And from what I understand from an hour ago, he's still here, been here for the last almost 3 weeks, and he is doing all kinds of stuff. So it was when I saw it come up, I thought, okay, this is where I need to be. I need to be getting some more information because I'm so angry. And my father is so angry because we understand, because my father is a minister and he understands that this is a stronghold, but we don't understand how much further he can go. He's lost everything, and so I can just go into a whole spiel about this. But so yes, I'll be accessing that information to maybe just help to get some clarification of what my brother is dealing with and where me and my family need to be, as far as being, I don't even know what the word is, because we've been supportive.
Right.
I mean, because we've been going through this for about 15 years with him, maybe 16 years. And what the problem is that he found my mother dead before I could tell him. He came in the back part of Mercy Fairfield, and mom had a cerebral hemorrhage, so there was blood coming from everywhere, ears, her nose, her mouth. They put a trach in her, and he found her like that, and that has just triggered just all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
And so at this point, anger is not where I need to rest. I need some clarification as to where I need to be, where he's concerned, and what do I need to do as a result of it. And we were living in a very dysfunctional household with all of this going on with our stepfather.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm gonna go back and listen and see what, because I've got 4 pages just from you talking tonight.
Well, if I may, just a couple of things I want to touch on, if you don't mind, and then you feel free to call the S.O.A.R number, and I can share more detail. But 2 things. One, you ever heard that saying, you just can't, I can't unsee it?
Right,
Once you see something, I can't unsee that.
right,
Well, he can't unsee what he's seeing,
right,
right? So
right.
that's constantly playing in his head. So
Uh-huh.
he's experienced a severe trauma.
Okay.
Obviously that goes without saying, but when you are deep in the throes of the trauma, and if you could imagine every time you close your eyes, the same picture pops up over and over again,
Mhm.
it makes sense that you would want to use something to drown out that picture.
Yes.
So if there's a way that you could connect him to someone that he would trust enough to guide him to some counseling, that would be the very first place to go.
He just won't do it. He just will not do it. And that's that stigma you were talking about.
Mhm.
In the African American culture, that if you go and try to get some help, you're crazy. What's
Mhm.
wrong with you? You know, but for me, you crazy if you don't go get no help.
Mhm.
Um,
But you know what, Miss Sonia? He actually can do it. Because I think I heard you say when he was not here, he stayed clean.
yes, he does.
So it's here that is his trigger.
Yes.
So the moment he steps back here, it just reignites all of that.
Absolutely.
And it makes sense that he comes back here because this is a safe place. This is what's familiar. And it's this pull. Like on one hand, you feel really safe and loved, but on the other hand, I'm hurt and I'm in turmoil.
Yeah.
So he could do it. It's just that when he gets here, he can't.
Yes.
So I want to encourage you to recognize that.
Oh yeah, I know it.
He is, right. Yep.
Oh yeah, I know
So
that.
again, if we could just get him plugged in just a little bit one time and hear some information outside of his family, it may be helpful. But all you could do is just give him the information. It's up to him to take it and use it.
Now, Miss Sonia, now your mother, didn't she, was it an aneurysm and she was on the expressway?
Yes, it was a cerebral hemorrhage, which is the main artery in the brain.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, so did you guys just kind of talk about that as a family, at least maybe just you and him? Did you all personally just sit down and just talk about that and simply talk about what he saw and how he perceived your mother when she was at Mercy?
We had, let me first say this, that I did not know that he found her until years later. It may have been about 5, 6 years later. All I know is that when I found him in the hospital, the hospital staff said that he had been laying on the floor. And they never said why. And he held on to that. And then this is the other thing. He took my mother's clothes from the hospital and carried around everything that mom had on in the bag in his trunk for years.
Mhm.
Her stuff was in the bag with blood still on it. I mean, and because she had on a leather outfit, the jacket and the skirt, it didn't deteriorate as quickly, maybe,
Mhm.
but he would carry around like Santa Claus. These clothes was in, Mama's clothes were in his trunk in the bag that the hospital put they put her clothes in the bag, and my brother
Right.
is the youngest of the four of us, and he had it in his trunk.
Yeah.
I don't know whatever happened. I don't know if when he got his car repossessed, that's what happened to the clothes. I don't know whatever happened to the clothes, but for years he was carrying around those clothes. I mean, he's got some serious things that have, and Minister Kim said trauma, and that is a perfect word.
Yeah.
Because when I got the call, I didn't know how to get to Mercy. And so he was the first one, because he was a delivery, he worked for a delivery service. So he was the first one that I called, but his phone kept going out. And he said, "Big sis, my phone is getting ready to go out. You're going to have to call Dad to get the directions to get out there." Because at this time, we didn't have GPSs on our phones yet. We just had a basic phone, just basic flip phone. So I wasn't able to call him back because his phone kept going into voicemail. So that's how that, that's how that even played out. And then he just came on to the hospital, but he came around the opposite entrance way where the ambulance came in, is what he ended up telling me. So the answer to your question, yes, he and I had a conversation about him coming around the back, the entrance way, them trying to stop him from coming in the ambulance way, him finding my mama, calling her name, she didn't answer, and him moving her head over, and him seeing all the blood and her body being cold. That's the only conversation that he and I have had. Other than me saying to him that I think that is a trigger and he needed to go to counseling. And I even invited him to go to counseling with me to help him with those images in his mind.
Yes.
Just wouldn't do it. He just won't do it. And now, if I be quite honest, I don't think that he's just using alcohol. I think that he's using crack too, because he hangs around people who are crack addicts.
Right.
And he used to be an illegal pharmaceutical rep. He had a job, but he was out there doing bad stuff. And these same people that he used to sell drugs to are like a family unit to him, because when he comes back right now, my son just told me before this class began, my son said he's hanging with those same people, Mama. That's where, we don't know where he is. We just know that he's hanging with these people. And he came in on a Thursday, and this was 3 Thursdays ago, and I called him. The Holy Spirit woke me up out of my sleep and said, "You call him and tell him to get out of Cincinnati." So Friday morning, I called him. I said, "The Holy Spirit said you need to get out of Cincinnati and get out of here now." And he said, "Okay, big sis, I will, but I need to get my system put into my car," because he just bought a new car. I mean, just been working 72 to 80 hours every other week, and every week he's working 72 hours. I mean, he is just had all this money in the bank. He is just doing so well. He bought a car, $5,000 cash, where he's just been saving this money. And came here to show off. That's the only thing I can figure, is he came to show off his new Acura, honey. And he's been here ever since. And my son said he's with them same people. After I told him, I said, the Holy Spirit said, get out of Cincinnati now. He said, I got a 10 o'clock appointment and I'll leave then. Pooh, He been here ever since, evidently. So
Mhm.
when I saw this come up, I was like, oh, these are the classes again.
Right.
Oh my goodness, we're doing the
Amen.
classes again. I got to get in there just to find out that you guys have been doing the classes. So I'm
Yeah.
pretty devastated about that. But
Well, but you know what? Look at God.
yeah,
He made it so that it was just us.
yeah,
So
yeah.
this
Isn't
ain't
that
even by,
something? Absolutely. I didn't even think about that. Yeah,
yeah, not even by accident, but all by design.
absolutely.
Something to share with you. When we experience any kind of trauma, stress event, anything that happens very quickly, unexpectedly, our amygdala quickly kicks in. The amygdala is the central location that tells us whether we want to fight, whether we're going to freeze, or we going to run. So if that moment, just for example, in that moment, your brother has frozen in time, he's moved on, but his brain is frozen in that moment. When I hear you say what he did with the clothes, to me, that makes absolute sense, because in that grieving state, that was the one thing that he had to hold on to.
Hold on to, that's right.
And he has carried that. Now, even if he's lost it, that's now another set of trauma, because I didn't take the internal conversation is devastating. You know, I did not take care of what I was supposed to take care of. So that internal conversation he could be having.
Yeah.
So there's nuances.
I was going to ask you what, yes, I was going to ask you, what did he do with you all's mom's things? That's exactly what I thought about, Dr. Kim.
Yep. So there's complicated grief along with trauma, unresolved grief. So he's got a few different layers. And then if you go to the ground floor, which is our foundation, there is the family of origin that needs to be dealt with. So when you're working through everything, you start from the ground floor up. I think about a home. We start from the ground floor up. Or if you need to be deconstructed, then we go from the top down, meaning we start from the here and now, and then we take ourselves all the way to basement floor, AKA family of origin. However it needs to happen, the reconstruction process only begins when he decides to open the door and turn the key and say, okay, I welcome in the opportunity to change, or I welcome in the opportunity to have counseling or talk to a therapist. That's the only time, unfortunately, where the change will begin. But if you can get him to think about it, then he's in that pre-contemplative stage. That's good. But if we can't get him to the pre-contemplative, it's a struggle.
And what does that mean, the contemplative state?
Pre-contemplative state, everybody goes through it. When you think about change, it's pre-contemplative, contemplative, change, and then maintenance. Pre-contemplative is like, okay, you know what? I know I need to lose some weight. I know I need to lose some weight. Yo, I need to lose some weight. Yeah, I got the jiggle. It's going on. I'm thinking about it. Well, I could start working out here. Maybe I'm gonna cut back food here. I'm prepping myself for it. Contemplative state looks like, okay, you know what? I'm a fast on Mondays and Wednesdays, and then I'm gonna eat fruit. No meat Mondays. Yeah, I'm gonna start that on this day, right? So I've contemplated, I put it into action, and then I moved into action stage where I actually start doing it. And the maintenance phase is where you continue to do what you do with periodic check-ins. It's called the stages of change.
Okay. And so then it goes on, because then last year he lost his girlfriend that he had been with for 17 years. She went in to have an operation at 44 years old and didn't come out. And so then we start that process all over again. So I don't know.
He's been through a lot.
I just need to listen to these. Go back and listen to all of this. And I thank you so much, because you've given me so much to even think about. Because, you know, when we're on the surface of it, you're thinking, what's the matter with you? Why can't you get yourself together? You know, we're doing all of this for you. We're trying to set you up, you know, and talking to you and praying for you and fasting and doing all these things. You have taken yourself down to nothing, where you didn't have nothing, nowhere to live, no car, no nothing. I mean, and we've had to, as a family, collectively keep picking him up and keep picking him up and keep picking him up. And it's
So
like,
the family has been the caretaker.
yes. And because of how my dad did things, I think that he feels more guilty because he is the baby. And the way that the divorce was so messy and so ugly. And so my dad just kind of feels obligated. And every time he says he's not going to do it, he's right there doing even that much more.
Yeah. Well, definitely keep an eye out for the YouTube channel.
Yes.
Also keep your eyes and ears open for our future town hall discussions. And again, if you have any questions, you can give us a call at S.O.A.R.
Okay.
Minister Kim, you still there? Of course she is. I forgot the number.
She's editing.
Oh, that's right. Pastor V, do you remember the number?
No, but she can always call 851-WORD and ask Sister Linda or someone to connect her to the S.O.A.R mailbox.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
So, and ladies, let's not forget the spiritual aspect of this either. So what we can always do, even on tonight, we can pray and ask the Lord to just allow his ministering angels to, what's your brother's name?
Keith.
Yes. To get through to Keith. It can be somewhere, if he's getting high, it doesn't matter. The Lord can allow someone to minister to him and to wake him up and snap him right out of this place, whereby he will want to say, hey, sis, I think I need to go get some help.
Yes.
You know, so we're just going to agree in the spirit realm.
Yes.
We're going to agree. Miss Kim Lee, please, you know, make sure you edit that part out, okay? But we want to make sure that we're not leaving the spiritual aspect out. And I know that Keith has a foundation, and we're going to ask God to allow the angels to dig deep into his inner person and just start to bring healing and deliverance so that he can make a conscious decision to get the help that he needs.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah.
His name is Keith Bray, B-R-A-Y. That's my brother.
Okay.
So,
Keith Bray. We're believing God.
Amen. Well, we have definitely gone longer than intended, but all in good is good. I'm so glad we were able to have this conversation. I'm not sure who has joined us.
They're still connecting. It's never come up.
Yeah, but I thank you all. The time was well spent, and I look forward to our next opportunity of meeting and discussing and learning from one another. So with that being said, I am going to bid you all a good night.
Okay. Good night. Love you much. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Love you guys.
Bye. Love you too. Bye.